Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone from around the world. Welcome aboard the Winter Games Express. I'm Gunning from CGTN Digital, and joining me on the show today are our CGTN sports scene anchor Greg Lafredi and Damien Jones. Hello, welcome.
Morning, Ning. Thank you.
Yeah,
for having us.
very nice to having you here with me today because it's my first time doing this show, the Winter Games Express show. So what's special about this Winter Games Express? I think you guys know, but you guys probably don't know if you're joining us for the first time today. The Winter Games Express is a bullet train traveling in between the Winter Olympics competition zones, Beijing and Zhangjiakou. And what's special about it is because it's the world's first bullet train that incorporates a TV studio where we are in right now that powered by 5G technology. That means even we're traveling at up to 350 kilometers per hour, we can still live stream ultra HD videos for you guys. So you guys are watching us in 4K. That probably means you can see this pimple on my forehead in crystal clear. I don't mind that, but anyway, so it's my first time, like I said, it's my first time being in the studio on the train. What about you guys?
Myself as well. As host of CGTN Sports Scene, I'd be on the other side. So we've been following the games, of course, and before the Winter Olympics started, we did a special introducing this train and all the wonderful technology that you just mentioned. So again, I was in the studio hosting that. Haven't been on the train myself, so I'm really lucky to have this chance to really sit here and see how it all works, to take in the countryside, zoom along at the speed, 350 kilometers an hour, and still broadcasting like this. It's, first of its kind at these games.
It almost feels like futuristic, almost, right?
Definitely.
Like I said, it's the world's first ever. So we are being very innovative. And what do we think?
From my point of view, basically, as this train line was coming into being, we've done several pieces on Sports Scene talking about the route, talking about the technology, and now to be able to sit here and experience it is really basically like bringing everything all together that we've seen the build up to it, and now the Winter Olympics and the Paralympics now almost over, but I'm just very happy and very excited to finally get a chance to be here on this train.
Yeah, exactly, because today is the very last day that this TV studio is in operation. It's going to retire after today, so it's very lucky that we get to enjoy the tour for the very one last time, or actually first time. And this carriage, this TV studio is specially designed for the Winter Olympics by CMG, CGTN's mother company, and it's really the aim of it is that it's easier for people like us, for journalists, to interview other journalists or people traveling in between the Olympic competition zone. So I think we're doing a quite good job, isn't it?
Definitely, and obviously the timing of it all, these technological advancements coming into the fore in the midst of the pandemic. Obviously, the restrictions placed on these games due to that. So it's really fortunate that we do have this technology, and for all the viewers out there, you're lucky to be able to see this, because otherwise it would not be happening.
Exactly. And now it's the very end of the Beijing Winter Paralympics, or Beijing 2022 in general. Have you been following any of the games, or was there any outstanding moment from your point of view?
Well, I mean, tons. We can't even backtrack to the Olympics. I think we just stick with the Paralympics to begin with. Damien and I, obviously, in our daily work, are following it all the time, but I think we both have a keen interest, not just in sports, but anything in Beijing, our own backyard, and also in these games themselves. For myself, the incredible progress China has made has been evident on so many different stages throughout these Olympics. 2018, Pyeongchang 2018, the last Paralympic Games, China won its first gold medal at the Paralympics, and that was Wang Haitao's rink in wheelchair curling. These games, China is dominating, just rocking up the leaderboard, the medal table rather, have won so many. Some of the best evidence of that, I think, in the men's snowboard cross SBUL category. There were 5 of the 8 semifinalists in that race were Chinese. The 4 finalists were all Chinese, so obviously a podium sweep, first of its kind for China, with Ji Lijia leading the way, and it shows just how far China has come from not winning a medal ever before in a snow sport like that to dominating to that extent. All 4 finalists, so incredible. And also we've seen great performances in cross-country skiing. 2 double Paralympic gold medalists in Zheng Peng and Yong Hong Chung, who both won gold in cross-country skiing, the sitting cross-country skiing. So double golds for the both of them. Again, huge progress for China in these games.
And what about you? Like, from your personal perspective?
Well, basically, Greg covered a lot of the action, but what really inspired me, basically, we've got to go back to the opening ceremony of the Paralympics and the individual who lit the cauldron, Li Duan, who is visually impaired.
Yeah, I was going to say that as well, so keep going.
So basically, his story is very inspiring. Now, I cover a lot of basketball for Sports Scene. He was a professional basketball player here in China, and he played in the Chinese Basketball Association in 1995-96, which was the league's inaugural season. That was also his rookie season as a professional basketball player. So he's really got a lot of history there. Now, he unfortunately had an accident after his rookie season. He was preparing for his second season, and a fire extinguisher exploded and blinded him. So I can't imagine what he was going through, the pain, the anguish, the disappointment, all of those emotions. Just starting his career, I believe he was 18 years old at that time, and he bounced back from that, turned his attention to competing in Paralympic sports, became a long jumper and a triple jumper, and he competed in 4 straight Paralympics in Sydney, Athens, Beijing, and London. He's a 4-time gold medalist. He's got also a couple of silvers and a couple of bronzes. So that really inspired me. And also, the way that the fans were cheering him on when he was standing up there, it has to be so difficult. He can't see, and he's trying to light this cauldron. Yeah. And I know he's practiced it, of course, but this is live. This is the real deal.
And it just didn't go as planned, I suppose.
Yes.
Well, he certainly talked about that, right?
Yes.
After he talked about the emotion, the nerves up there being the center of the world's attention and just trying to find that socket, like you say, practicing it tons of times, but in that moment trying to do it and then hearing the applause wave over him, a just incredible moment.
I wasn't in the audience in the arena, but I was in front of my TV. I was nervous in a good way, not in a bad way. And I was praying for him, and I had my hands like this together, and I was biting my lips. I just hope everything, I think that wasn't just the longest minute for him. It was the longest for the audience as well. But you said, people were cheering, were having the chants for him, and they were saying, 加油, as in, you got this. And it was just like phenomenal, right?
Yeah, incredible moment.
Yeah. And speaking of the outstanding moment, I don't know if you guys remember I think it was one day before the Paralympics even started, the ice hockey Paralympian, whose name is Adam Kingsmill. Do you know this guy? He had his birthday one day before the Paralympics started, and he received a little surprise from the volunteers at the arena, which was a cake but made of the hockey pucks.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice touch.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that. Lucky guy.
Yeah.
And people talked about that. So many of these athletes, you hear it at the Olympics, of course, but at the Paralympics, it's such a tight family affair, and so many Paralympians coming, and I've heard many of them praising the volunteers here in Beijing, saying, I've been to 3, 4, 5 Paralympics. The volunteers here have been the best.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? What's amazing is, so there are around 9,000 volunteers throughout the Beijing 2022 Games, and I think 19 of them served in the Winter Paralympics, and they were disabled people as well. So you certainly think, not being stereotypical or anything, but you certainly think disabled people need to be taken care of. But that's not right. They can help people as well. They're just one of us. They're just like us. They can be helpful if you need help in this Olympic Village. So I think that's pretty impressive.
Definitely. The volunteers, I know, always the unsung heroes at any games, and these more than ever due to the coronavirus pandemic
Yeah.
situation in that. I mean, there's piles of different examples, but I know one that we had a story for on Sports Scene where it was a father and a daughter. Father Cheng Bin and his daughter Cheng
I heard
Xiaoxuan.
that. They're both working in different sides of
Well,
the
they're both in Zhangjiakou. He's in the administrative section. She's at the awards plaza in Zhangjiakou. But they both served during the Winter Olympics, and then they were given the chance to continue at the Paralympics, which they both did.
I watched
So
that
that
on the
means they're in the closed loop for about 5 months,
Yeah.
right? Working every day. This isn't a holiday for them. They're working day and night doing this. They're about 2 kilometers apart. They haven't even been able to see each other
Exactly.
during this time because they are so busy doing what they're doing, and it's serving all the athletes, everybody else coming to these games. So tons of stories like this of people in closed loop giving up 5-6 months of their time to help out, to do what they can.
I know. I watched that news the other day. They were having a three-party video call on WeChat with the mom, the dad, and herself. And the mom was just sharing a bit of tears. I can understand why, but it was like happy tears,
Yeah.
of course.
Proud, obviously, just
Yeah.
proud.
But that also brings us back to this notion of the tight-knit Paralympic community and the fact that this family will dedicate that time, and they want to do this and they want to be a part of this, and it means so much to them, and of course it means so much to the competitors as well, and that's really part of the joy of this event.
Yeah, and I do personally have a Olympic story myself, but I'll leave it to later. So now, you know, the population of the disabled people in China is around 85 million, which takes about 6.34% of the whole population in China. So what do you think it means to Beijing, or it means to this community that Beijing held this Winter Paralympics, or just Paralympics in general?
Well, one thing I think it means is visibility, letting people know that we have disabled people, but they are part of our society, and as you said a little bit earlier, they're not helpless, they have abilities and they can do things. That's one. Visibility and acknowledgement, and also this provides inspiration because people can see this with your own eyes now. They're not locked away, hidden away in their own community. They're in the public eye, and people are seeing these impressive achievements that they're making, and I think this inspires everybody, able-bodied and disabled as well, to say, look, hey, the Paralympics are giving us this visibility, is showing us what these people can do, and I think that's impressive. Now, you bring up this number, 85 million. Think about that. There's a lot of countries in this world whose population doesn't reach 85 million.
Yeah.
So I think it is very important and very imperative that we show this support to the disabled community and to allow them to have these opportunities, and in turn, we can learn from them.
On a national level, too, this has helped spur efforts towards raising awareness and just increasing the number of barrier-free accessibility facilities all over the country, not just for the Olympics, but this will carry over into provinces all around the country, too. And just, again, making people aware of those around them. You setting up a new company, new shop, making sure, hey, let's make sure there's a ramp there. Let's make sure this is accessible to all, not just for sports or anything like that, but just in daily life. So it's incredibly beneficial, really, to the whole country. And again, that 85 million, which is such a huge number.
Yeah, it is. And how do you think the sports can inspire people like them? Or just not like them? I am inspired, I am motivated to do winter sports myself when I watch, for example, Gu Ailing doing that phenomenon jump. So how do you think it can work in people? Like how are people inspired?
Well, I'll just bring up the example of one athlete that we covered in this past week. Her name is Mina Fitzpatrick. She's a British visually impaired skier, and she's now Britain's most decorated Winter Paralympian. I think she's up to the last week she had 6 medals, and she was going for more. But what was really interesting, I found, was one event that she didn't win. She finished in 5th place, but she said that was one of her most cherished accomplishments because she basically struggled with the downhill because of the angle, and obviously being visually impaired, she had this fear of being able to go down the hill and worried about maybe it's losing her balance or being able to finish the race. And she was very proud of the fact that even though she finished 5th place, she finished the race, and that was really overcoming her fears. And I think this is something that we can also learn and from watching the Paralympics, and this can help people, whether you're able-bodied or disabled to see, hey, she's doing this and she's overcoming her fear, and it can inspire people to overcome their fears as well.
And the Paralympics, of course, is rife with stories of redemption and people finding themselves. The event I mentioned earlier, the men's snowboard cross SBUL category, was won by a 19-year-old Chinese kid, Ji Lijia. He lost his left hand in an accident at 6 years old. I mean, I can't imagine this. The father of a 3-year-old child myself, I cannot imagine his family dealing with this and him. It took him a long time, obviously, to recover, and then a few years later he found snowboarding. He started snowboarding just at the age of 13, but this gave him confidence and belief that I can do something physically inactive, just like all the other kids around me. 6 years later, he's a Paralympic champion. I mean, incredible stories from himself, what he will go on to do, the people he will go on to help. Whether he directly contacts them or not, he's going to be involved in the sport the rest of his life and motivating people through that. And like you said as well, the Paralympics really, it transcends the games.
Yeah.
It's more than just Paralympics. It's for all disabled and able-bodied people alike. It is incredibly inspiring to just see what you can achieve if you put your mind to it. Everybody's facing obstacles of all kinds, but we can overcome them with hard work, devotion, and just love,
Exactly.
passion.
And I think the message they send out to us is like, no matter what kind of difficulty or trouble you're going through, you can always achieve your goal if you want to, if you have the strong will. Right, and you know, in the arenas, the stadiums, there are obviously facilities for them, but I think I can't remember where I read this from, but the volunteers are asked to not offer help unless the Paralympians ask, because the facilities are, you know, advanced enough so they can just do everything themselves. But, you know, if they really have difficulties on doing something, they will ask the volunteers for help. So, I mean, have you noticed any, you know, facilities around the city for disabled people? I'm sure you have. How many years have you been in Beijing for?
10 years plus for myself. You get
Count
even
longer
longer,
than
yeah.
Oh, you've been here. I think you've probably been here longer than I have. I'm just joking.
Yeah, you're really dating us here. But one of the first things I noticed in coming to Beijing was the blind track for visually impaired people. Ramps are everywhere. These are obviously these things, and again, it's something I don't take notice of. I've had friends who are disabled, and it was only when they start pointing out these little things that I would notice it, but in my daily life, it's really hard to appreciate this or notice it. But that, on all the sidewalks, all the pavements around, and subway stations, everything, is that blind track that I spend a lot of my time walking to and from work and outside, and I spend time on that one. It's just something that just aware of all the time, and it was something a lot of people notice. Family members, when they come to visit, also notice and point that out and say, hey, I hope we can get this in Canada. This is fantastic.
Yeah, I think the blind track has been in the city or in China for a long time, but I think it was after the 2008 Beijing Summer Olympics that Beijing or China in general really started building up these facilities for disabled people. Like, I have a statistic here. So the barrier-free facilities in Beijing are placed in more than 336,000 places, and there are more than 100 wheelchair accessible streets and blocks around the city. So I'm from Beijing. I'm a Beijinger. So I'm very proud for Beijing to be the dual Olympic city. But anyway, sorry, just a little bit
nice
boasting.
little plug there.
I grew up in Beijing, but I was away for a couple of years for school. And after I came back, I kind of compare the city to like what it's like now to what it used to be like. And I did realize that in, you know, subway stations, for example, there are so many more vertical platform lifts and those stair climbers. They're just everywhere inside subway stations. So it's become a lot easier for disabled bodies to, you know, continue their daily life when they're not home.
It's fantastic, these improvements. I mean, And it's a long way to go. We say that, but I think other people, if you are confined to a wheelchair, you are encountering difficulties everywhere, and that's in Beijing too. I mean, I know, again, speaking as a Canadian, the government recently passed a law, a mandate to increase barrier-free facilities, and something by 2045 they have a goal to basically make Canada barrier-free, and that extends to all walks of life, also barrier-free in terms of jobs and opportunities for people too. And 2045, that's a while away. It's something Canada's just not just recognizing this problem, but really starting to do something more about it. And I think China really is helping to lead the way in this as one of the countries that is building new facilities all the time, spending money and devoting attention to it. So a world leader in many ways, I think.
And what about, I think you are from America, right?
Yes.
I think Canada and America are, I have to be honest, and I'm not being, patriotic or something. But I do think Canada and America are doing much better to, protect disabled people than China. But we are catching up. We're catching up for sure. So what about America?
Well, basically what I think is, as Greg was saying, there's a lot more to be done. And I think this has been a long struggle. I was saying earlier to one of our colleagues, as children, one of the first people we learn about in American history is Helen Keller, who was blind and deaf, and she became an advocate for the disabled. And she inspired more people along the way. And finally, years after her death, but in 1990, the US passed a law called the Americans with Disabilities Act. And this was really, in my opinion, a revolution. This was passed unanimously by the House of Representatives and overwhelmingly by the US Senate, signed into law. And this law basically prohibited discrimination based on disability. And after this law was put into effect, we started to see more handicapped parking spaces, more disabled access restrooms, more lifts, and more wheelchair ramps. Obviously a long way to go. And every couple of years they update this law, but that's really been the key in the US, and it keeps getting better, but obviously we want everybody around the world to look at this issue and put the disabled community in the same position to have these rights as well.
Yeah, and speaking of law, I think just before the 2008 Beijing Summer Olympics, China enacted a law called the Protection of Persons with Disabilities. And before, I think it was a day or a few days before the 2022 Winter Paralympics started, China published this Parasports Progress and the Protection of Rights. I think the white papers. I think no matter if it's the Summer Olympics or the Winter Olympics, I think they really play a role on boosting the law or the publishment of this kind of laws for disabled people. I think that's something we benefit from the Winter Olympics or Olympics.
Well, we often cite, you have numerous times, how big Beijing 2008 was to the development of China. Yeah. In a few years' time, we'll be saying the same thing about Beijing 2022. Mm-hmm. The progress 14 years on from those games, and then the progress from these games on. And it's fantastic because it has highlighted new work, new problems, new areas of improvement, and China is continuously identifying these things and trying to improve on them. And the spotlight that is put on not just Paralympians, but Olympians, but sport, all these issues in general through these games, and the way the country has embraced these games and really staging them all together just helps to make these things, bring them to fruition faster.
Yeah, and now we've talked about Paralympics, and I want to know about your whole journey of the Beijing 2022 in general as a whole. So that includes the Beijing 2022 Olympics. So was there anything that stood out from covering the whole event from a personal perspective?
Well, personally, as a diehard snowboarder, so I grew up snowboarding in Canada dating myself here, but I started snowboarding about 30 years ago.
Wow.
Back when
Let me
snowboarding,
calculate.
literally. So these days, snowboarding was barely even accepted. We were shunned at most hills. They wouldn't always sell lift passes to you. We were pushed off. Snowboarders were evil at that time.
Yeah.
So the progress the sport has made. So for me, one of the big stars of these games was Su Yiming.
Oh, for sure.
I've been following this kid for a few years now.
Really?
Well, just when he was 15, 16, he was not quite on the international scene, but he was making waves in China. One of his, not coaches, but mentors, basically, is Mark McMorris, a Canadian snowboarding legend.
Right.
And McMorris has been working with Su for a long time now already. I mean, talking about him. So I've heard mention of him there. I've seen him in snowboarding magazines and stuff. About a year or two ago, Su Yiming landed cab 1800, so that's 5 spins, 360 being one spin. So he was one of 15, 16 people in the world that can do this trick. At this point, it wasn't even sure that he would qualify for the Olympics. Then as it got closer, it looked likely that he was going to get to compete in the big air. Again, wasn't one of the favorites. Come this season, he's blowing people away. Silver medal in the slopestyle, unexpected. Gold in the big air, doing frontside and backside cab 1800s. Again, as a snowboarder, it's just sick, as we'd say. Absolutely incredible what this guy is doing. It scares me.
Did I mention I just started learning snowboarding?
You did. Can you imagine?
Yeah, so
you have a mild appreciation for what he's doing.
Yeah. I don't exactly know like the terms, and because I'm a newbie, but looking at that performance was just stunning. I was mind blown. Yeah.
So, go
The
ahead.
thing I always find interesting about Su Yiming is the fact that he is a former child actor, acting in movies directed by some of China's greatest directors, and he just decided, I want to pursue snowboarding, which is a very interesting choice because you don't see something like that happen very often.
Although I have to correct you by saying that, because I think she was chosen to be in that film was because he could snowboard. Because I think there was a scene of him sliding down or of some sort, and that's why he got chosen. He didn't change his career technically.
Well, I think my thinking is more like once he got into that movie, he was offered more movies, so he basically had the chance to become this child idol. But okay, we can say he went back to his first love and decided to pursue that instead of becoming a star in films.
Well, and to reach these heights, too, the dedication these guys have to have. Su's only 17. He's been at it for a few years, but that's day in, day out training to be the best in the world at anything, especially something like that. When he's competing against, again, the Canadian guy I mentioned before, Mark McMorris, some of his idols, the guys he grew up worshipping, and now he's beating them. Yeah,
and can you imagine, he won the gold medal 3 days before his 18th birthday. I mean, can you think of a better
I'm still calling 17, I forgot.
birthday present?
18
Yeah, he's 18 now.
Yeah.
And so America, the US has held the Winter Olympics 4 times, and Canada did it twice. I don't know, I think you were, old enough to have memories.
Careful with
that. Well, basically, what I'll say is, we'll skip the first 2. I wasn't born at that time.
1932 or something like
yes,
that.
Yes, in 1960.
Yeah.
But I really consider the 1980 Winter Olympics at Lake Placid to be the start of what we consider now the modern Olympics, because you had basically the big story was the made-for-TV event, the Miracle on Ice, where the USA defeated the mighty Soviet Union 4-3 in ice hockey on the way to winning the gold medal. This was basically they moved the time of the game to get a bigger audience, and there was all this drama. The US fell behind, and then they finally ended up winning with 2 goals in the final 12 minutes. And that really jump-started a love in the US for winter sports with these games. There was also the great performance of the speed skater Eric Heiden, who won 5 golds and set 5 medals. And a lot of people don't know this because a lot of people think about China coming back to the Olympics in 1984, but they actually sent a delegation in 1980. So that was a huge part of China's resurgence on the Olympic stage as well. So I really consider 1980 to be a turning point in the modern Olympic movement.
Wait, sorry.
No, please do. I'm nodding definitely some of those. The hockey memory. You bring up hockey again. As a Canadian, grow up playing hockey. We're hockey and snowboarding basically for me, snow and ice all the time. our games, we had the 1988 Calgary Olympics. Again, I was a bit young then, but the 2010 Vancouver Games was right in my prime. I was already working in sports radio at that time, covering stuff. So one of the big moments for me for that was, again, the men's ice hockey final. That was Canada against the U.S. It went to overtime, and Sidney Crosby scored what's now known as the golden goal, the winning goal for Canada to give us that game. And incredible moment.
Were you
I'm
emotional
at home
a little bit?
watching TV. Screaming and yelling, absolutely. Beers flying, chips are flying, everybody's having a great time. But one of the most amazing things, I was living in Toronto at the time, Canada's most populous city. The streets were empty for those Olympics, for that game, and this is one of the last days. Ice hockey is traditionally one of the last events at the Olympics, and you look outside and there's nobody on the street. There's no cars, there's nothing. It was a Friday evening or something, or Saturday. Silence. Every apartment you see loaded, and you can see parties, people going on TV watching. The second that goal was scored, you could hear people cheering. I'm in the other side of the country, and you could hear the cheers across the country. Everybody spilled out onto the streets, and we're playing impromptu road hockey games. So we're playing literally out on the streets, down busy highways, Yonge Street, the longest street in the world, and we're out there playing hockey, celebrating this thing. So it was an incredible moment for the whole nation.
Must be special for all the Canadians in the country or outside Canada.
Definitely.
Right.
Well, not only that, but if I remember correctly, didn't Canada also beat the U.S. in the women's final that year?
Definitely. We won both of them, and the curling wrapped it up. Yeah. Canada and the U.S. and the women's really dominate. They're there all the time.
Can you see how proud he is right now?
Absolutely.
Anything on the Americans. That's a big part of it.
It's good. It's a good thing that you guys are sitting together next to each other. And I'm just like, yeah, keep going.
Now, I do want to mention, Greg didn't really delve into Calgary in 1988, but you really can't talk about those games without remembering the legendary now Jamaica bobsleigh team, because they just returned to the games here at the Beijing 2022. But they really became a worldwide sensation in 1988, even though obviously they didn't win. But you have this tropical island country, and they're competing in the sport bobsleigh, and it really caught the attention because people are like, how is this possible? How do they train? They don't have snow. But they were really easygoing and cool, and they just had this great story and struggle, and it ended up becoming a hit Hollywood film based on their story, Cool Runnings, which was really a great story.
Same games also, Eddie the Eagle, and British ski jumper. That came out of the 1988 games as well. There were a bunch there, Some big movies, some big Olympic movies all from that time.
Guys, I think you can tell these two people work in sports. I don't, because they just can't stop when it comes to, talking about sports or Olympics. But anyway,
one more memory from Calgary.
Keep going. We are not short of time.
The women's figure skating was really captivating because it was promoted heavily in the U.S. There was the German defending champion, Katharina Witt, who's one of the all-time legends. You had the young American Debbie Thomas trying to challenge her, and Canada's young favorite as well. Elizabeth Manley was her name?
Yes.
And they just had this riveting duel, and Katharina Witt ended up winning her second straight gold. Elizabeth Manley was second, so a lot of cheers for the home country. Debbie Thomas finished third with the bronze. The U.S. was hoping for more, but they all gave a great accounting of themselves, and I think those were the biggest memories out of those Calgary games.
Yeah, I know you're both very enthusiastic about the Olympics or the Winter Olympics. So this might be a very easy question for you. Do you know the Olympic motto?
In Latin or in English?
English.
Yeah, stronger, higher, faster, and of course together. The new Olympic motto being addendum.
That's technically right, but you got the order wrong.
Faster first.
Yeah.
Oh!
I'll give you 8.5 out of 10.
Too excited.
But I think if we were to add one more word to it, I think it should be greener, right? Because right now we're trying to, decrease the carbon dioxide, or just for the sake of global warming. And I do have something here. I think China is the first the Beijing 2022 Winter Olympics is the first Olympic Games to have all venues powered by renewable energy with solar and wind as primary energy sources. I think that hasn't been used before, has it?
Certainly not. I mean, that's a lot of the build-up to the games. We've been doing constant stories on that, the incredible technological achievements. This train being one of them, but the green work that has been done for that. I mean, Winter Olympics take a lot of energy to put on, right?
Especially when you are making the snow as well.
Making snow, but making ice as well. So that's one of the big ones, is this new, the first time ever used, it's the carbon dioxide transcritical cooling system that was used to make the ice at the ice ribbon, all the facilities for the hockey, all these. And this is groundbreaking technology, and it's been proven to be very effective in that, what was it, 10 Olympic records and 1 world record set at the ice ribbon. So incredibly effective. Not just that these, so it shows that this can be done, that you can put on the games in a green way, and it's groundbreaking. It's going to make a huge difference in the Olympic movement in the future games.
Yeah, exactly, for the future reference as well, because China has been doing some innovations on technology for this time for the Winter Olympic Games, including the studio we are in right now. So I do hope maybe not just China, the world can learn something from it, maybe.
Well, once again, as we're dealing with the climate issues facing the world, this is something that has to be done. And Greg was mentioning the transcritical carbon dioxide process, and that actually, one of the reasons that it helped the athletes set these records is because it lessens the friction between the skates on the surface and the ice, and the thickness of the ice, I guess you'll say, because the less of a difference in temperature, the faster, the smoother the ice is, and the faster the athletes can go. So you're basically dealing with a green measure here with this process, but also helping improve the performance of the athletes. So they, in my opinion, go hand in hand.
Yeah, and like I mentioned before, Beijing now is the dual Olympic city, and I gave you a glimpse of my personal story of my personal Olympic story. So my story was back in 2008. I was performing in the opening ceremony of the Beijing Olympic Games.
What? Whoa, you've been saving that gem. Wow.
Yeah, for the very the end of the show.
We didn't know that.
So I was 14. And I was singing the Olympic anthem. I had like a 7 seconds shot when the camera was panning, so you can see me actually singing in the middle of that stadium, the bird nest. So being involved again in the Beijing 2022 Winter Games is also very special to me from a personal level. Like, I was a performer back then, and now I am working for CGTN covering the Winter Olympics, and it's something else. I don't think anyone or everyone can have the same kind of experience.
Oh,
yeah,
that is amazing. I've been fortunate just to have been able to cover one games. I covered Pyeongchang 2018. I got to talk to Chinese athletes after they won medals.
Yeah.
But that is a whole different level of closeness and involvement. You're part of the games.
Yeah. And the fact that I am from Beijing is really make it to the next level. Well, I think that's pretty much for our show today, and I hope you guys enjoy the very last story of myself with the Olympics. So stay tuned with CGTN for more content, and I hope you enjoy the closing ceremony of the Paralympics. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.